Pika Pika!
Greetings, this is Genshin-kun, and we are back with more Chaos Head. So let's get back to it, the visual novel, shall we? Yes, we do want to load. Doop doop doop. You typically go to At Cafe after school. Yeah, okay, now, yeah, we were just recently caught. Our friend lied to us, and now she's showing our conversation with Nightheart. Wait, we're Nightheart with Shogun, I mean. Our conversation with Shogun and how they don't match, and where we hung out. Basically, she's investigating us, because she thinks we committed the murderers or something like that.
そして学校に行くのは週に 2.5 回。あなたのクラスメートから聞いたんですけど、先週あなたが学校に来た日は月曜日、水曜日、木曜日。先週の月曜日は9月29日。将軍の発言時間と同じ日です。
What was she saying?
ルーム37の PC のチャットログを調べさせてもらいました。そこから分かったことが。
You briefly cut herself off. Then finally catching my gaze straight on, she gave voice to the relentless truth.
あなた一人の自作自演。
One man play? What? Don't look at me.
将軍は
Don't look at me.
あなた自身。
Wait, what just happened?
何も見たくない。
I don't want to see
何
anything.
も聞きたくない。
I don't want to
時
hear
間は
anything.
一定じゃない。
Time is uncertain.
記憶には矛盾がある。
Huh, that actually kind of makes
視
sense.
界にはエラーがある。
Just like totally just blacked out.
地球は回ってない。これはきっとゲームなんだ。僕じゃない。
At last, my serotonin wallpaper appeared on the monitor. I instantly started up at ESO without a second's hesitation.
ここじゃないんだ。
Click me. What? Beep, beep, beep. Please hurry up and board the bus for the field trip. Nishijo Takumi lay sprawled out on the tatami-covered floor with a colored pencil in his hand. It was yellow. The one he had several minutes before was red. He reclined on his sketchbook, almost covering it with his body as he ran the pencil across it lightly. Takumi loved to draw. He loved it so much that even during school he always doodled in the margins of his notebooks. The TV, which had been turned on even though no one was really watching it, was currently playing the morning news. To Takumi, who was still only in the 4th grade, the news was nothing but boring stuff, so he didn't look at the screen. Beep beep, 300 yen for candy. He was drawing a yellow bus. He pretended he was the bus driver. The bus is full, so we're going to take off. Beep. He brought imaginary scenes into reality through his drawings. He worked so energetically that there were many times when his lines went off the surface of his sketchbook onto the tatami. Each time Nanami, who was reading manga nearby, became angry and grumbled, "Geez, you mustn't get it dirty." Even though she was just a little sister. Unconcerned, Takumi continued immersing himself in his drawing. But when he reached the stage of drawing people in the windows of the bus, Takumi's hand stopped. And he deliberately tore apart the sketchbook. The day before the fall field trip, Takumi's parents had suddenly told him you can't go on the field trip. He was looking forward to this. He was looking forward to it this whole time. He was overexcited since the morning, so much so that his heart pounded as he wondered how soon it would be tomorrow. He simply couldn't bring himself to accept how his parents had callously sentenced him. Weeping, he insisted he would go on no matter what. but he was futile. Regardless of what he said to them, his parents wouldn't listen, telling him only you can't, and we're only looking out for your best interests over and over. Burrowing into his bed, Takumi trembled with such frustration that as if he were about to rip the mattress to shreds. He loathed his parents from the bottom of his heart. At the time, a field trip had been a tremendous an event for Takumi, one sufficient to induce this level of passion in him. Though everyone else in the class could go, he alone could not. For Takumi's point of view, it was all too unreasonable. Takumi's world this is probably another mistranslation. Takumi's world was a lonely one. Their world was full of fun and passion. He would have had sense that he was the only one to have been cut off from the rest of the world. He couldn't forgive his teacher, his classmates, everyone who had left him behind. Nor could he forgive his parents for their abrupt and unfair sentence. This is probably how he got to be how he is today. This began to transform him into hatred. This began to transform into hatred toward his parents and classmates. Biting his lip hard enough to make it bleed, he continually repeated curse-like words to himself. None of you should be able to go. Next morning, the telephone was ringing off hook. Another mistranslation. Ringing off the hook since early morning. Each time his mother answered it, her responses seemed more and more unsettled. In the end, Takumi couldn't get even a bit of sleep. There we go. It was a little past 9 o'clock. Nanami sat on the cushion in a ladylike manner, reading manga. The day before, she told Takumi Nana's going to stay home from school too, and be with her big bro. And now she was there near him as if it were perfectly natural. Their father had already gone to work and was nowhere to be seen. Their mother was so busy answering the phone that she didn't have time to make breakfast. There was no need to go to school today. Still sulking, Takumi opened his sketchbook and began drawing to clear away his gloom. But his irritation wouldn't go away, and right when he tore her up and flung his sketchbook away in annoyance, Nanami raised her voice in confusion. Takumi thought she was talking about the drawing he had been working on, but her eyes were glued to the television. Nami yelled for her mother, who was even now responding to another phone call. Listening from beside her, Takumi absently-mindedly followed his sister's gaze to the television screen. The screen showed the spectacle of a fallen highway overpass. Only an area about 50 meters in size had collapsed. Unfortunately, a single bus that had happened to be passing over that one spot become caught up in it and toppled over sideways beneath the overpass. It was indeed that bus that Takumi was supposed to have ridden. The bus all his classmates had been riding. A single glance was enough for him to imagine most of what had happened. His classmates were reflected on the screen. One was crying, one had his forehead covered in blood, one was being laid on a stretcher and carried off into an ambulance. Oh, I missed that one. Can I go back? Okay, yeah. One laid on a stretcher and carried on off into an ambulance. A pale-faced reporter described the circumstances of the accident, but Takumi didn't really understand what he was saying. His mother stood stock still at the entrance of the room, face pale, still gripping the phone. Bum. Oh. For some reason, Takumi was certain of it. Everything been shown on the news right now bore a powerful resemblance to what he had envisioned in frustration and hatred last night. One thing alone resided in Takumi's heart, the particular conviction that he was the possessor of precognitive powers. Ooh! Anyway. An ESP investigation TV program he had seen long ago was carved into Takumi's memory. The precog who appeared on the program had startled the contemporary world with his display of overwhelming supernatural abilities. In one test, 12 items were to be placed in boxes labeled from 1 to 12, and precog was to sit in a different room with cards that had the items' names on them and predict which boxes they would go in. Only afterward would some staff members in a different room actually place the items in the boxes. When they tallied up the overlap between that was predicted and the boxes' actual contents, that precog 90% success rate made the show's host go wild. As he watched, Takumi played along by making predictions at the same time as the precog, with the result that he got every single one right, but of course he didn't tell anyone about it. That was why now, too, he saw the accident on TV and thought to himself that his foresight had been correct.
クラスの半数以上の子が怪我したらしくて、はあ、なんてこと。
Takumi's mother began to embrace him, but he slipped out of her arm and crawled to another corner of the
で
room.
も、本当によかったわ。
His mother murmured emptily, her gaze swimming through the air.
今日、タキちゃんを休ませておいて、本当によかった。
Sure. Takumi felt like vomiting. Everything was rotten, he thought. So what if he had precognitive powers? It took a mere instant for his heart to freeze. For some time afterward, Takumi stopped speaking. He was literally mute. He wouldn't let out a single word in response to anyone. His becoming mute worried his parents, who started becoming more and more overprotective. As they thus started to seem stupider and stupider to him, Takumi ended up deliberately playing the role of a wordless boy. It was his way of getting back at them, he thought. That's not nice. Noticing that he had stopped speaking, Takumi's mother took him to the psychiatric ward of a general hospital. He was diagnosed with PTSD. Since he didn't actually have PTSD, of course, he didn't take a single dose of the medicine they gave him. He only pretended to take it. Takumi's parents didn't catch on to the fact that he was acting, and even when they saw him fretting about him, racking their heads over him, he didn't feel the least bit apologetic. What an asshole! Whatever. This guy's messed up. Hello? Everything feels like a lie. The world is full of fiction. Furthermore, it seems like everyone's ill will was directed at me.
いつもあなたが使っているチャットルームへログインして自分で調べてみてください。私の言っていることが間違っていないってわかるはずです。それと私が言ったことは全部本心です。これだけは信じて。
After laying out her incomprehensible opinion, you attacked on that last part and vanished from before me. Like hell I could believe her. You got some nerve to say believe me after deceiving me. No matter what, I didn't want to acknowledge my everything, which Yua had thrust at me. I wanted to think that her calling me Shogun had merely been idle words or rambling. But when I looked at the chat's backlog, I saw that she wasn't wrong about the timestamps not matching.
僕は無遊病なの。
I had been sleeping when Shogun posted his parts of the chat. It was an incontrovertible fact that I had gone to At Cafe at that time, but I hadn't fallen asleep, so I couldn't be a sleepwalker. Then what did it mean that I don't have any memory of posting as Shogun? Alternatively, someone other than myself could control my body. Ridiculous. To prevent myself from getting even more stressed, I escaped from reality to another fictional world, ESO. Even everything about ESO was a lie, because when you get down to it, it was a world and a game. But in Basilad, I became Nightheart, an existence practically on the same level as God. I couldn't accept this kind of lie, this kind of fabrication. I wanted to stay here, I thought. What's wrong with that? Or maybe ESO itself was the real thing, and the world was fake. Perhaps a game, for instance. Okay. We're getting into some pretty philosophical stuff here that's been debated for ages. Maybe Nishijou Takumi was a fictional existence and Nightheart was my true self.
ねえ、ナイトハルト。
Am I controlling you or are you controlling me? Which is it? Are you real and I'm the avatar? What if the world I was in right now was a game that would explain everything? If in the same way that I was watching Nightheart inside my monitor, if I too were being watched by someone, whose eyes are those eyes, that person would have to be the player controlling me. If so, I'd like him to play my role better, but an avatar can't voice complaints. It would make sense if Shogun and I were the same person. Come to think of it, Liselet was in a similar situation. It was impossible for Nightheart and Liseletto to ever exist in Basilland at the same time because they only had one player, me. Maybe in a similar manner, Nishijou, Takumi, and Shogun couldn't exist in the world at the same time. Or one could also contemplate the possibility that it was a bug. Speaking of bugs, my running in the weird girls and murder cases might have been due to a bug as well. Oh, hello. The image Shogun had sent me flickered across my mind, and I held my head. I shook it despairingly from side to side. I wanted to run away from everything. If there's really a player out there controlling me, I'm begging you, please reset me. And rebuild me once more from scratch. Okay? Okay. The university's hospital waiting room was packed with old people waiting their turn to be seen by a doctor. Nothing about this tableau had changed from several years ago. It was enough to make me think that time had stopped. Worse than the air, stagnant as befitted the stench of disinfectants, and everyone had dark looks on their faces. Well, yeah, in the hospital, it's not exactly a place you want to be, typically. Try to spend 5 minutes in a place like this, and you get depressed enough to want to die. I don't like hospitals. Many people don't either. Since I was little, I've been terrified of how there are hardly ever any traces of human presence in the hallways beyond the lobby. Although they tend to be lots of people in the lobby itself, it was almost as though the scent of death lurked in those hallways. I thought that itself was the hospital's true face, and that things far more horrifying and eerie were hidden at the ends of the corridors. That was why I hadn't really wanted to come here, but there's something I needed to verify no matter what, and so unable to avoid visiting, I intently waited for my turn. Even after I entered ESO, the words Yua had left with me spun around and round in my head, making it impossible for me to concentrate. As a result, I worried about this and that all the way until the morning and became seriously scared that something about me might be abnormal. Well, yeah, something is wrong with you, dude. By coming to the hospital like this, I hoped the doctor would give me their official guarantee that Nishijou Takumi is perfectly normal. I wanted proof that Yua and not I was the one with issues. I was used to coming to the hospital psych ward, although I unthinkingly nodded when the young lady at the desk asked me if it were my first time being examined here. Ever since the aforementioned bus accident, my mother had brought me here at regular intervals. When I entered middle school, the doctor responsible for me diagnosed me as completely cured, and because I stopped going here, it had been about 4 years since my last visit. Hello. Ooh, we're gonna pick Nightmare. We're gonna pick Nightmare. Come on, give me the red, give me the red. I don't want, no, give me this. Give me that nasty red. Yes. Doctor I was initially assigned to was Professor Moroku, who was said to be highly influential in the field, but he examined me just a few times before, switching me to the doctor who had been one of his pupils. Despite calling a pupil, he wasn't particularly young. If anything, he looked older than he should have been. Last night, I had suddenly recalled the Dr. Takashina's words. Okay. I'm guessing this is his mom and Secret Agent Man. And I hated the hospital, but he was very kind to me. I had the impression that he was a good person. Not for long, dude. I just chose Nightmare for you. Even then, I had utterly succeeded in deceiving all the adults around me. To the very end, Dr. Takashina was the one who saw through me and declared me fully healed. What would he say to me? Oh, excuse me. What would he say if he knew I'd turned into a gross otaku? No, it's been too long. He must have forgotten who I was in the first place. Here we go. I was soon called to the examination room. So much for my thinking I'd have to wait a really long time. Why had there been so many people in the lobby? It'd be quite a twist if they were being paid to sit around there and make the hospital seem popular. Here we go. It was different from room from earlier. When I entered, a familiar face was there to greet me.
やあ、西条くん。
Dr. Takashina grinned at me. He hadn't changed one bit from the 4 years, relieved to see that I immediately poured out my hard time.
先生、助けて。
どうしたんだい？
変な女が僕にストーカー行為を。このままじゃ学校にも行けないし、家にも一度来られて場所知られてるから安心できないし。
落ち着いて。
落ち着いてなんていられないよ。あの女異常だ。僕は正常なんだ。それに岩だけじゃない。悪魔女だって。そうだ、悪魔女が真犯人なんだ。
真犯人？
ニュージェネの犯人だよ。間違いないんだ。僕は事件現場でしたよ。貼り付けにしてる最中のあの女を見たんだ。
大丈夫だ。何も心配いらないから。とにかく落ち着こう。いいね。
Feeling rebuked, I closed my mouth. I had no idea what was supposed to make things all right. But since a professional doctor and Dr. Takashina's and Dr. Takashina to boot was telling me so, it had to be okay. That is what I was that's what I convinced myself. La 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 la. But I had grown agitated and it hurt to breathe. I caught my breathing together. Dr. Takashina watched me steadily all the while. He seemed frighteningly grave.
本当に大丈夫？
もちろんだよ。
あんな危ない女が僕を、狙ってるのに、なんでそう言い切れるの？
理由を知りたいかい？
I nodded, and the doctor shrugged his shoulders a bit. He kept unconsciously toying his pen in his hand at the top of his
な
fingers.
ぜなら、君の言っている女の人はこの世には存在しないからだよ。
でも
君は自分の妄想に怯えているだけなんだ。
His voice was eerily gentle. My body began shaking. It wouldn't stop. Why? He was so kind, and yet...
西条君、君はその女の人には会っていない。
Ooh.
わからないよ。
じゃあ、もっと具体的に言おうか。君はその女の人には会えるはずがないんだ。
Dun 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 dun.
もう7年間も君は
Oh, you can hear his heartbeat.
この病院から一歩も外に出ていないんだからね。
I just got a bad end, I think. What did he mean? What are you?
君はこの病院の精神科に7年間入院している。そのことはわかるだろう？
Oh, snap. Yeah, this has to be a night. Yeah, this is definitely a nightmare. I didn't understand. Like hell, I couldn't understand. How could he say such ridiculous things with a smile? I glanced down at my clothing. Today I should have been wearing a Barachu t-shirt with Sierra on it and a long-sleeved denim jacket on top. And the only pair of jeans I owned on the bottom. But now, for some reason, I was wearing hospital garments. A faint yellow-green piece of clothing shaped like a dress. It was plainly made, tied together in front with a screen. Oh gosh, I'm not stopping. I'm gonna finish this nightmare. Yeah, tied together with a string. I wasn't wearing pants underneath. When had I changed
ここ
clothes?
は閉鎖病棟だからお見舞いの人も来ない。入院患者さんの男女で別フロアに分けられていて行き来はできない。
We're all mad here, right?
精神科の看護師は全員男だし、君の病室は完全に個室。つまり君は7年間女性と接触したことがないんだ。思い出したかな？
It's a lie. It had to be a lie. I haven't been hospitalized. I live on my own in Shibuya. I'm a Talkcast fairly well-known player in ESO, and I follow my minimum attendance for shift chart, going to school 2 or 3 times a week. And earlier, the nurse was in front of the desk had asked me about it. Is it your first time here? Yes. Then please fill out this piece of paper with the necessary information while you wait.
嘘に決まってる。
本当にそう思うのかい？
Ooh. Dr. Takashina murmured as he wrote something down on the clipboard. I couldn't read what he was writing. It wasn't Japanese. English? No German?
だとしたら君の精神はまだ異常だっていうことだよ。もうしばらくは入院が必要だね。
He took a single brief glance at me. His eyes were brimming with pity. He had never looked at me like that, not even once in the past. I weakly fell to my knees. Tears flowed out of me. I see, that's right. All my memories up until now had been delusions. I was the abnormal one. I was the one going weird in the head. What a horrible twist, but well, I didn't care anymore. Even if they turned out to be an illusion, they weren't memories I had any desire to cling to. Anyway, couldn't I just recreate them from the start? This time around, it'd be nice to have a world without any scary incidents. I'd have a sociable personality, excellent grades, and be popular with girls. All my friends would be beauties on the level of gravure idols, and all of them would have crushes on me. I imagine myself living under the same room as them, and thus our fun, bittersweet, and just a little comedic everyday lives would begin. I attempted to force myself to laugh. My face was twitching. I didn't want to die. When I came back to myself, I was still seated in the sofa in the lobby. Yep, it was a nightmare. Yes, that's a very good nightmare. Oh, good. They're so much better than the good dreams. Okay, well, I think that's enough for now. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Chaos Ed, because I certainly did. And until next time, sayonara.
I am Mass Scientist. It's so cool! Laboman number 004. クルセットナバ
ティーナも禁止
だってる